Friends, and welcome to this blessed and holy Saturday. Today is kind of a strange day in Holy Week. We're in this kind of in between of Good Friday, which we celebrated yesterday, where we looked at the crucifixion of Christ. We're between Good Friday and what we call tomorrow Resurrection Sunday, and the joy and celebration that Christ has risen from the grave. But the disciples and the followers of Christ didn't really have that knowledge, and so they didn't know what was coming. They didn't know what tomorrow held. And in fact, Scripture doesn't really have very many verses that talk about what happened on the day between Christ's death and his resurrection. There was obviously probably we can imagine a lot of grief and silence and pain and just hopelessness. It was a very grim day. So today, on this Holy Saturday, which we call it, we sit in that grief, and we sit knowing the weight of what Christ has done for us. But we also know that God is not inactive today. We know that God is still active and at work. And like we proclaim in the Apostles' Creed, Christ descended into hell. Christ invaded hell to have victory over death. And so we have hope because we know that even on the bleakest of days, like today, when we sit in the grief and the pain of Christ's suffering, we know that God is at work. So like I said earlier, there's not a lot of scripture that details what happened on this in-between day. And so instead of having a scripture reading like we've done these other days of Holy Week, I'm going to share with you some words from a book of Holy Week readings. This reading kind of has a reflective nature to it. It details a lot of the pain and the suffering that comes on a day like today. But at the end, it kind of hints towards what might be coming. There are some rumblings of the hope that is coming, even from the depths of hell. So as I read these words, just let them sink in and sink in. Let them sink into the grief and the lament that we are feeling today. But also remember that God is for us, and that even in that grief, these words can bring some hope. They will hopefully add meaning and focus to this Holy Week journey that we are on as we look forward to tomorrow. So I'll be reading Voice from the Darkness, Death by Dr. Dan Wilt. There is death, lack of breath, lack of blood, lack of life. Death can only be conquered by life, and that life must be life after death. That life then must be a physical life to truly conquer a physical death. There is the sting of death. Lack of hope, lack of faith, lack of health. The sting of death can only be healed by the balm of life. And that balm of life must be the balm of life that redresses, must set right the sting of death. That balm of life then must be a repairing agent to truly heal the sting of death. Into death's dark cave and into the shadows of the sting of death, many have moved and many have succumbed. One has stepped deep into death's tomb, been enveloped in the wiry shadows of the sting of death, and in its hungry hall has spoken. A voice from the darkness, not silenced, but full of breath, nor hollow, but full of blood, nor lifeless, but full of all manner of life, now speaks. So again, as we continue on with today, this Holy Saturday, may we sit in that grief and that pain and that lament. But may we also have an eye toward the hope that God is still at work. So hopefully we will see you tomorrow for Resurrection Sunday. We'll talk to you later.